What is going on, YouTube people? David Cards and Comics here today. Talk a little bit about trading and leveraging trading to level up your collection, inventory, whatever you want to call it. And what brings up this topic today is I pulled off a bigger deal, almost a 2,000 on each side, but basically a 4,000 total value trade at my local show this past Sunday. If you follow me on Instagram, you should know the card that I'm talking about already. I usually sneak peek stuff over there, so follow me on IG, links in the description down below. But I pulled off a bigger trade, and I kind of wanted to use this as an example of how I personally like to use trades to level things up, consolidate in some cases, and then use those things to consolidate again into other stuff. So let's talk about the card that I picked up first. I have wanted a nice J-Rod card for a hot minute. It's just something that I've been kind of keeping my eyes peeled for, trying to find something. If something came across my radar, and I specifically was looking for a first Bowman. Ideally a BGS 9.5 or a PSA 10 of his first Bowman auto. I was at my local show on Sunday, and there was someone there working with one of the guys that I know pretty well, and I saw that he had a J-Rod refractor first Bowman auto on his case, and I was like, what are those going for these days? Like, just kind of striking up casual conversation, and he's like, 2,300. He's like, I'm getting ready to potentially move it to this other guy over here, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I knew the guy that he was going to move it to. And they ended up completing a deal. I just kind of hung out and watched the deal go down. And then once the deal was done, I walked over to the guy that I knew and said, hey, I'm interested in trading for the Julio if you want to move it along. And he looked through my stuff and we came to a deal pretty quickly. So the card that I picked up is a PSA 10 J-Rod out of $4.99 first Bowman auto refractor. Definitely was not expecting to go the refractor PSA 10. Like I said, last three sales on this are about 22 to $2,300, are about what the last two or three sales of this went for. I really like J-Rod. I think he's really good. I recently had picked up that dual auto of him and Witt. It's actually sitting right here, this bad boy. And I thought that this would be my J-Rod card to carry me into the season, along with Witt. I like Witt as well, but ended up picking up this. So what did I give up to get this? Well, I had to give up the Vince Carter Dunkin' Go Nuts PSA 10 at about $1,500 value. There was a recent sale on that card for just under $1,500. And I gave up the Spencer Jones Speckle PSA 10 first Bowman auto that I had. Those are going for right around $800. So it worked out pretty well. We actually came together on the deal very, very quickly. But those two cards I basically had next to no money into. Now, the Spencer Jones, I pulled that and graded it, and it came back PSA 10. So I have the price of the box into that plus the grading fee. I don't remember exactly what that Bowman box cost. I think they were like $350, $400, and let's call it like $15 to grade it because I sent that in on one of the baseball specials. So maybe I was into that card for, let's just call it $400, give or take a couple bucks. And then the Vince Carter, I had traded into that. So that's where I really like to leverage the trades to level up. And that was the first trade set up the second trade. And the other thing that I like to do is leverage when the players are hot. Because if you remember, when I traded for the Vince Carter, which was about 2 months ago, I moved, that was right when Juan Soto got traded to the Yankees. And I moved the Bowman's Best auto and the Juan Soto Rainbow Foil. That was about $1,100 in trade value. So I packaged those two together, got the Vince Carter at $1,100 trade value, and then traded the Vince Carter at $1,500 trade value, and then threw in the card that I pulled. So if you go back to the roots of it, it was a Juan Soto Bowman's Best Auto, a Juan Soto Rainbow Foil, rookie PSA 10, and the Spencer Jones for the J-Rod, assuming, because I acquired the Vince in between. And acquiring the Vince at the time, it was a play on Soto is hot. His cards are very liquid and probably slightly inflated in the comps. Is there something I can move these for to give me more safety and security in the short to medium term? And the Vince Carter Dunkin' Go Nuts was that, because the Vince was a very safe card. Dunkin' Go Nuts in a PSA 10 that don't have a lot of yellowing don't come around too often. So I knew by storing the value in that card that was less likely to fluctuate like the Juan Sotos were probably going to do over the short term. Now, the Vince Carter, great card. I'm sure some people in the comments are going to freak out because I traded that card away. But it wasn't a card I was attached to. I'm not a huge Vince Carter fan. It was a cool card, don't get me wrong. I loved owning it for the time that I owned it. But it was nothing I had any emotional attachment to. It was purely transactional. And I knew at some point in time I would either sell that card or leverage it in a trade. And that's exactly what happened here. The plan worked out to perfection. There was a good sale on that card. So I had that comp to lean on. And also that card is just something that someone out there is always going to want it. It doesn't fluctuate in value a ton. So that was a big part of the bargaining chip for this. On top of that, I did the same thing I did with the Soto. I had the Spencer Jones. That card had jumped $200 to $300 in value off his recent spring start. His stuff's super liquid, so I was able to include that in the deal as well to get to that value. Now, that card, maybe it keeps going up. Most likely, he's already been optioned. He's not going to make the major leagues to start the season. I expect his prices to cool down once the season starts and he kind of falls off people's radar. So I leveraged the upswing in the value on that card as well. Now, this is a little bit more of a gamble than the Vince Carter, obviously, because now the season's about to start. Performance is going to start mattering. If he starts slow, there's a good chance this card could drop to $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 and I'm out. It would have been a loss all around. That I don't know, but I just wanted a cool Julio card to start the season with. Now, is that smart air quote investing or whatever? I don't know, but it's what I wanted. It's fun. Don't forget, that's part of all this. And the fact that I was able to get into this is a card that I would not typically buy. Even though I really want one of these, this isn't necessarily a card I would want to spend $2,200 or $2,300 on cash. There's other things I would rather buy with cash. But trading into it, whole different story. Now, I just have the card and I moved off of 2 cards. I'm not going to lie, I was getting a little bit attached to the Spencer Jones. The Vince Carter, once again, it was a cool card, but I never had any emotional attachment to it. The Spencer, I did a little bit because of the fact that I pulled that, sent it off for grading. It got a 10, but I don't like the Yankees, so it's whatever. That is one I would not be surprised if I bought back into Spencer Jones in the summer or in the spring if his prices dip a little bit. They might not. He might just continue to stay hot. But I do kind of like him as a player, at least the hypey aspects of it from I could see his card spiking again later. But like I said, I thought this was a pretty good example of how I've leveraged multiple trades to end up in this card. Now, I'm not necessarily planning on trading this or moving this card. I'd actually just kind of like to hold on to it for a while because, like I said, I really do like Julio Rodriguez as, one of the next young faces of the league. So now I finally have one of his nicer cards that I could just kind of tuck away for a little bit and hang on to. If he starts off ultra hot and his prices really spike, would I leverage it again? Sure, absolutely I would. Another note that I just kind of want to throw on here as well is, and I talked about this during the Vince Carter trade, when you're walking around shows, and this is especially helpful if you know your dealers really well, if it's a local or a regional show and it's people that you interact with at the same time, I knew that something like that Vince Carter or that style of card, as cool as it is a little bit harder for a dealer to move. That is not as liquid. You're looking for a certain type of collector or investor for that card. The Sotos were super liquid because he had just gotten traded. Try to leverage that sort of stuff if you can. If you have cards in your case, in your Zion case or your backpack or whatever, and they are of the moment players, whether it's the prices are spiking or just they're super liquid and it's not something you're attached to, that's when dealers are going to be most interested in those cards. If the player's ice cold and no one cares about them, it's going to be a lot trickier to trade those. I see a lot of people in comment section say, I never have any luck trading this, that, or the other thing. I've leveraged trading a ton to move into cards, but the trick is approach dealers with cards that are extremely liquid and find things in the case that appeal to you that might be have a little less liquidity, but maybe it has increased rarity and it's going to hold its value better than the of the moment card, or that is going to be more stable or might have a more niche market, but you're willing to wait that out. And that's basically what I did with the Vince Carter in this case. So leverage trades. They're trading cards. Let's not forget that. It's right in the name, folks. I know that it can be a little tricky sometimes. It's not always the easiest, but I have had a ton of success over the years leveraging trades to level up into cards. Now, maybe this one ends up biting me in the ass if he starts slow or has a bad season or whatever. That's a risk that I'm willing to take because this is all supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be a hobby. Yes, it is a business for a lot of us as well, or a side hustle, whatever you want to call it. But now I have a couple fun Julio cards to carry in the season. I have the Blue Sparkle that I pack pulled in the back. I have the cool J-Rod Witt. And we have the first Bowman Refractor. And side tangent, maybe it could be a good investment. I don't know. Probably not. That's the risks, but is what it is. That's all I got for you, boys and girls. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.